Here's the thing. People are calling Super Bowl 60 boring, right? For the same reason that they call Bucky's brisket great. Okay? It's stupid. It, it's it's stupid. And if you think that this was a boring Super Bowl and that halftime show debate was all there was to talk about, you're absolutely just you don't know football. Now look, I know that a lot of you folks out there are saying that this Super Bowl was boring between Seattle and New England, and I think you're just wrong because if you're thinking that, you probably don't know football the way that you think you know football. I mean, I get it. The first half was a slog, right? I mean, at least to casual fans, if you're a casual watcher of the game, you're thinking that that was just the most boring thing ever. In 9-0 at halftime, sure. Look, for a football purist like I am, right? 9-0 at halftime, that was catnip for us. Okay, but if you're one of these people that's into this offensive poison and you like to see high scoring games and balls go flying down the field, you were absolutely thinking, "My God, this is a horrible game." But I want to tell you why that was such a master class in pure football. Okay? Because defense dominated that game. Defense dominated the Super Bowl, but also it strangled the highlight reel. Okay, it doesn't. Seattle's defense last night was consistently just wrecking New England's offense. I mean, in terms of sacks and punts and stalled drives, that's good football. Okay, whether you want to believe it or not, that's good football. And it's just not always the most exciting thing to look at on TikTok or the highlight reel, right? I mean, because there were some of these boredom meters. I mean, who the hell watches these boredom meters? I mean, what kind of people watch a football game for a boredom meter? But they were calling it like 7 to 9 out of 10 on the boredom meter. I mean, do you really understand what you were watching? And I get it that field goals do not feel like drama to most of you people who are just casual fans or you're younger fans, right? Or you the bro culture fan, right? Punts, field goals, trench warfare. I mean, this was trench warfare yet last night, right? You're watching that, you're thinking, "My God, this is boring," and because field goals don't retain viewers. Okay, that kicker for Seattle, what was his name? Jason Myers. You realize that kid hit a Super Bowl record 5 field goals. Now that's a flex, but that's not the kind of flex that the bro culture and the event watchers really want to see, right? The people who are going ape over, you know, jalapeno poppers and finger foods. That does not keep your interest at all. And in the modern world of football, star power matters, right? In the modern world of sports, star power really does matter. Last night in the Super Bowl, casual fans did not feel that star power. And I think a lot of chatter around, you know, the quarterback storylines, I mean, you got to think this was more of a workman-like Super Bowl than this legend building thing, right? Okay? And I understand why that game made a lot of non-football people who claim to be football people why it made them scream. I get it. And honestly, that stupid halftime show thing between the NFL and these two opposing groups, politically speaking, that just became the complaint pile, right? Some of the boring, uninteresting takes about this football game were not even about the game itself. It was about the culture war reactions to Bad Bunny and Turning Point USA. It was not even about the game itself. So people were again event watchers, not football purists. So if you're a real purist like I am, someone who understands that defense is football, then you enjoyed this game. You like a game that ends in 29-13. A game that's controlling the line, one that's forcing mistakes, taking points when they're available. If you understand defense, you realize that's not a character flaw. That's having a functioning brain and functioning eyes. Okay? Most Super Bowls are not about the true fan experience. And most people who watch the Super Bowl are not fans. They're event fans. And event fans want touchdowns. They want lead changes. They want trick plays. They want moment after moment highlights. But a defensive game can be objectively much higher quality football, but feel really slow. So, why does a defensive game feel like purist football? Because it strips back the BS from football and it goes back to the real, honest to God, oldest, hardest truth about the game of football. Move me if you can. Get me out of the way. If you think you're big enough to get 10 yards in 4 plays, then prove it. Move me. And that's the oldest truth in all of football. And when defense is winning, when defense is playing its best, you're watching the game of football in its most honest form. It's physics, it's discipline, it's decision making. It's not just athletes freelancing for publicity in front of the cameras. You're watching the core fundamentals of football, physics, discipline, and decision making, all in perfect unison. So you're probably asking why defensive games like what we saw in the Super Bowl last night feel like a pure football move. Because I'm going to explain to you this. It's a mathematic formula. Let me explain. Football is basically you get 4 tries to gain 10 yards, and the defense exists to make that equation fail. That's not extra. That is the whole point of the game. If you understand that, you understand football and you are a fan. And people don't like this because defenses generally punish mistakes immediately. Defensive players are disciplined. Defense is where the real chess match of football comes into play. I mean, sloppy footwork, bad reads, missed protections. Defense can sometimes score on you. And defense can prevent a great offense from doing its job. That's why they say defenses win Super Bowls, offenses win games, score points, right? Because it's much harder to be coordinated on defense than people really think it is because of this math equation, right? If you really think about this, that's where it all comes down. Look, good defense is not just about go out there and whack that guy, hit him. It's not. It's about 11 players executing a perfectly laid out plan. You're talking leverage, gaps, coverage rules, clear communication amongst your team, tackling angles. I mean, every single snap you're doing this, every single play. You're talking about one guy being wrong can ruin this whole equation. That's the kind of discipline that a game like what we saw in Super Bowl 60 really brings to the table. And if you look, Super Bowl 60 did something that we hadn't seen in a while, and that was highlight the line of scrimmage. because that's where games are actually won. That's where championships are actually won. Casual fans keep the eye on the ball, right? They want to watch the ball. A purist like myself is going to really watch that line of scrimmage. You're going to watch where the plays develop, down really at the pad level. And you're going to realize a grown adult who really likes this kind of stuff is going to realize that's where the chess match happens. Think of a defensive game as being the type of game that rewards you for doing the right thing, for being a thinking player, right? Defensive games often become about field position, it becomes about special teams, and no dumb turnovers. I mean, that's true. And that's old school football, man. That's how a lot of playoff games are actually decided. From the high school level to college to the NFL, that's how a lot of college games and a lot of games in general are decided. They're decided off of football at the purest form of the game. That's why coaches preach fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals. That's why defensive coordinators are so important. So I guess the truth is, if you enjoy a game where third downs actually matter, and you enjoy a game where one busted coverage swings the night the other team's way, and you enjoy a game where the points are earned like rent money, then you're probably closer to a purist than you are just a casual observer, somebody who buys into this bro culture. So, and that's an important thing. That's a really important thing. And I think people want to know, what is a purist? What is it shorthand for? What does it stand for? The truth is, purist is someone who likes football when it doesn't look like football. You know, when it doesn't look like the high points scoring thing. And if you look, I think it was the Cowboys in Buffalo when the Cowboys won at like 52 to something. That's where we really started seeing this high scoring game. And that was in the 90s, right? Was it in the 90s? I think that's when we started seeing these high scoring games really come into play. Those were fireworks shows with shoulder pads, right? That wasn't necessarily football. Although being a Cowboys fan, I'm glad that the Cowboys won. But if you're a real purist, you're liking that line of scrimmage control, that in the trenches warfare, you know? You're liking people who can make good, solid, quick decisions. And people who value the field position over the scoreboard, because you can appreciate situational football if you're a real purist fan. And I think a purist realizes that defense is a craft. I mean, you're looking at disguises, you're looking at rotations, you're looking at pressure packages, you're looking at tackling angles, and every single person being forced to do their job at the exact same level at the exact same time. You're taking what's there. You're taking what's available to you. A 12 play, 6-minute drive is art. That's not stagnation. And the translation to that is, a purist enjoys the chess match of football, the violence with rules, not just the highlight reel. Okay. So when I look at that game, I see a big, good game. And I think if you're a winner in football and you like football, I'm sure there's a lot of armchair quarterbacks and a lot of, dopamine fans that are going to, make comments on this or whatever, and that's fine. They just don't know. The casual fan. The casual fan, they watch how far the ball goes, right? They watch, was it a touchdown? Did this thing work? But a purist, somebody who understands the game, they're understanding why that defensive play worked, who and what won the leverage, right? And you're understanding what the defense did to bait the quarterback into whatever the quarterback did to screw up. You're understanding that, and I think it's the kind of people who, because a lot of, I'm going to use a music analogy to this, right? This is the difference between liking a song because it has a catchy chorus line and being able to recognize the drum beat, the production notes, the timing, really appreciate the art of the music. And I don't think that the high scoring fascination of offensive football was an accident. I mean, the NFL had been nudged that way probably towards offenses for decades, really. And they did this through media, through the rules, by creating new fan habits. And I think one of the key pivots for me, if I really look back in this, I think was 1978 with the illegal contact was restricted beyond 5 yards. I think that was a real turning point of the game. And that's also when they loosened a lot of the pass blocking rules to help linemen protect passers, right? Specifically to open up the passing game, which gave years later uh, gave a lot of room for growth for like Coach Leach and the air raid offense, right? I mean, in especially in college football, right? But I think that was a big pivot point to where we saw the rules really change the game. But then I think was it in 2004? I think the league began to emphasize enforcement, if you will, around illegal contact, you know, holding calls, and all of that. PI, right, comes into question again. But that pushed the game into the modern high scoring era. And I think that that's when the sports incentives really shifted on purpose, right? So the game shifted because it was designed that way to go against the defenses, because defenses don't keep people tuned in and happy and satisfied. So that's what I think. Defenses don't give the Monday morning quarterbacks and the jocks and ESPN and sports radio something to talk about. And I think the bottom line of this is a lot of viewers or what event watchers, right, are looking at this. They're treating this like fantasy football, red zone slot machines. All these things are the drivers for engagement, right? They want the payouts, they want the highlight reels, they want all that, right? But if you don't engage in fantasy football and betting and highlight reels and all that stuff, if you want something kind of old school, this was your game. This was your game. I mean, because in the high scoring sports world, hunting becomes cowardly, right? Instead of strategy. And I think the run game and having patience with that becomes outdated. And I think in the modern game, defense forcing field goals leaves the casual viewer or the modern viewer thinking that nothing happened. Then add on to that clock control that's telling people that this is a slow game, a boring game. But I want to close this out with talking about history. Historically, plenty of championship games have been won by exactly what we saw last night. Don't beat yourself, win with leverage, win with field position, and cash in on the other guy's mistakes. The scoreboard does not need to look like an NBA scoreboard to be elite. So, if you want to really think about it, this was a hell of a football game. And it was a football game that drove people to madness. Because if you didn't like that game, I'll just say it, you didn't understand football. You don't understand that simple equation that we talked about earlier. You didn't understand it. And it's over your head. And honestly, in my opinion, you probably don't need to watch football anyway. Because you understand where defensive guys are coming from. Or you don't. And that's the beauty of it. So go back and really watch that game. If you want to know about football, if you're a kid learning football, go back and watch that game and watch every play and watch how the defense really made it pay off.